Okay, so at the moment, when we jump into a new level, it looks a bit harsh, and there's a couple of reasons for that. If we walk into our flag here, we'll see when we walk over to the side, so what happens is we get an abrupt kind of visual jump like that, but we also get an abrupt musical change when the music starts into the new level. So what we want to do is just simplify that up and make it nice and simple. So the easiest one to change is our level music. So at the moment what happens is we get to the end and our level music just keeps playing. But we've already known that we can, if we kill ourselves or anything like that, we can have it switch to a new bit of music to play for that moment. So why don't we do the exact same thing with our flag here? So we could go and add a new bit of music, and you probably would want a special kind of celebratory music at the end of the level. But for the moment, we're just going to use the exact same music that we used before. And as we know that our main music and our end of level music are both attached to our level manager, our game over music is attached to the level manager. If we were going to use a specific end of level music, we'd also want to add that here and add that into our level manager script. But we're just going to use our game over music that we're currently using. So what we can do is go back to our level end script, and as we're already getting access to the level manager, when we hit the flag straight away at the start, we can just go, okay, so the level manager dot what do we call it, level music. So that's the music that's constantly playing by default. We can say to that one, just stop what you're doing, and we can then say the level manager dot game over music dot play. So that will start playing the new music, and then we get a little bit of a softer transition between the levels. So we're already doing something that will help a little bit. So this is the kind of simple element of it. We're going to do another thing as well, but let's just see how this works now. So now if we hit play here and we run it into our flag, when we get a second, there we go. Okay, so we bump into the flag, our game over music plays and fades out. We walk over the side, and then our music starts again when we go to the new level. So the music is fixed up like that nicely, but now we've still got this kind of visual pop in at the start. Now, of course, what you really want to do is you want to start your player touching the ground, and you want your camera to start off in the right position, and that'll just be down to just setting that stuff up nicely at the start. But still, you've got this jump of the ground changing beneath the player's feet and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is basically add a black screen into the game that will fade out when the level starts. So it'll do the same thing at the start of this level as well, and it'll fade from black to being shown the level. And it's a nice kind of way to just break between levels when you're traveling between them. So if we're going to do that, obviously we're going to need to add a black screen. So we're going to add it to our canvas, and much like we did with when we created the game over screen, we're going to do the exact same thing basically. So we're going to our canvas in our level starter pack, and here we're going to add a new empty object that we're going to call our level. No, we'll just call it the black screen to keep it nice and simple. Okay, and then within that, we're going to create a new UI image. And you can see it starts off as this big white thing. So for the moment, we'll just leave it like that for a second, and we're just going to drag it out so that it's big enough to cover our canvas. And we'll do the same thing we did before as well, of making sure that it stretches out wide. So we want that to stretch out wide, and we want our black screen to stretch out wide also. Okay, so then we need to change the color of this. So what we did before was go to our color here, and we can drag this down to be 0. So you'll notice that we've got 4 different values here for our color. So we've got a red, green, blue, and an alpha value. And a red, green, and blue, obviously these combine to make different colors, and they have a value from 0 to 255. So all you really need to know is that black is 0, and for example white is 255 in all of the values here. But so our alpha value also is, when it's 255, it means it's fully visible. But if we scroll it down to be 0, it means it's completely see-through. So what we can do is we can start off the level with the full black screen like that, and make our alpha value fade down until it's 0, so we can just go ahead and play our game. So what we'll do is, now that we know how we set that up, we can create a simple little script that will just start as soon as the game starts and start counting down to being a completely visible screen. So we have all this in place here, so we can now go to our script folder and create a new script that we're going to call fade in, and we'll open this up. There we go. Okay, so we obviously need to know how long our fade in is going to take, so we're going to create a public float. We'll call it fade time. I think makes the most sense. And then we're going to be, we know that we want to, the image that we want to fade is this one here. So we're going to need to be able to make a reference to this image. And because we know we're using the UI, because this is a UI image, we need to use up here, we need to type in using Unity Engine, there we go, .ui. And then down here we can say, okay, so we want a private image that we will just call black screen, and then in our start function we want to get what the black screen is, so we will say black screen equals get component image, because we're going to attach this script to the image here, so we will know exactly which thing we're talking about, so we can fade it down. And then what we can do here is just get rid of this warning thing down here. Basically, in our update loop, we wanted to start going to see-through straight away. So what we're going to use is a built-in kind of function within our UI image stuff, and we're going to say on our black screen, what we want to do is dot crossfade color. Or actually, what we could do is dot crossfade alpha. So what we want to do is, so our current alpha when we start the game is 255 because it's completely visible. So what we want to do is make the alpha go down to being 0. So then if we look at our little kind of info basics here, the float alpha here is, we have our target alpha, so that's where we want to go to. So we can say here, okay, so the target alpha is 0, because we want it to take it to 0. Then we have a duration, so how long do we want it to last, or how long do we want it to take to do that? Well, we have our fade time up here, so we can just type in fade time. And because this is a specific function for this, we don't have to do fade time multiplied by time.delta time or anything like that, because we've also got an option here to ignore the timescale. So we don't want to ignore the timescale, we want to actually use the timescale, so we will say that this should be false in there. So we're not ignoring the timescale, we're using that to count down however long it takes. How long will we set it here? Probably about a second or two for it to count down to being black. Okay, so that's fine. So basically that'll just make our alpha fade down to black, and then it will be completely see-through. But obviously once it's done that, we've no more use for this script or even for this object within the game anymore. So we can just delete that from the scene then. So we can say, okay, if our black screen dot color, so just having a look back here, so we have our black screen, we're talking about our image component here, so the color on that, we want to check if the color on that has gone down to 0 on the alpha channel. So black screen dot color, and instead of having to type alpha, we can just type A. Is kind of just a simple shortcut for it. So black screen dot color dot A, if that is equal to 0, then we can say, okay, if it's equal to 0, then we know we've faded down to 0. So now we can just say, okay, game object, or not even game object, sorry, we want to say destroy game object. No, actually, it would be much better to just deactivate the object. So game object dot set active false, because we may want to reactivate this black screen at different times. Who knows? Okay, so we can save that. And now go back into the game. We've got a small error on line 14 because we didn't put our semicolon at the end there like that. Perfect. Now we can go back in. And we should see, it should work just nicely for us. So if we hit play, once it compiles. Oh, well, it's not going to work very well if we don't attach the script, is it? Okay, so that is our fade in script. We want to make sure we attach it to the image itself rather than the holder that we used for it. So this time we can hit play. and we didn't add a fade time to it, so that's not going to work very well either, of course. So let's try this one more time. You always need to remember to adjust your values once you actually create your script, rather than just going with what you imagine in your head. So there you go, you see it kind of slowly fades in, and we can actually move around in our game just like this. So that's perfect, that's exactly what we wanted to do. But at the moment we've added that to our level starter pack, but we haven't applied those changes yet. So what we can do is go to our level starter pack up here, apply the change, and we're going to switch into our level 2 scene. Because we applied that change and because our player was kind of off to the side, our player will now have moved all the way over here, although we can't see him at the moment. So what you would usually want to do, we have this big black screen here, but when we're making the game, it's not very helpful to actually have that activated the whole time. So we're just going to deactivate it, and then when we're done with the level, we can reactivate this black screen in our game. So our player now is starting over here because that's where we adjusted him to when we applied the changes. So let's just drag this player back in this level to here. So like I said, when you make changes to your level starter pack, you need to remember that it's going to remember exactly where the player is at all those times. Generally you want to leave your player back at the start of the level anyway, so it's not too much of a problem. But okay, so we've got our black screen, and we'll reactivate that now because we're going to go back to level 1. Once level 1's all loaded up, we'll hit play here. We'll get our nice little fade in to start off the level. Our player will go to back where he was, and we'll end the level, walk over to the side, music is all changed, and we go to a new world, and it kind of fades in and makes it a little bit more sensible, and a little bit more kind of feels like a good change in the